It's Wednesday morning, September 23rd, and getting ready to get at it. So I think the game plan probably is going to be to try to get as much of what's left done today as possible. I don't know if I'll get all the way to the end of the list, but hopefully at least be to a point where if we decide that things can go tomorrow, a few things can get pushed off if they need to be. We're actually probably pretty close to that point right now, but a few things still need a little bit of attention. So I think the game plan is going to be, I'm going to work on the 7220 first. I need to get the duals pulled off of it and check fluids and grease the front end and a few things. And I have a couple augers to go through still. The smaller auger I might just wait until we get ready to put it up to the bin to do it, and we may put it up to the bin prematurely just so that it's ready to go. And need to go through the truck still, check fluid levels in the transmission and the rear ends and stuff, and maybe grease some pivot points on the steering system, and maybe brakes. We don't put a lot of miles on it, so I don't want to over grease the brake stuff too much, but I might give them some of the stuff a quick pump or two. A few other random things, but things are moving forward. And then probably work on the corn head also, which hopefully there shouldn't be too much to do on it. Mostly just need to check the grease and the gearboxes on it, which is kind of easier to do with two people, or you can have one person watching for it come out the top side and one person with the grease gun, corn head grease on the bottom, putting grease into the gearbox. So that's the marching orders. Let's get some stuff done. Got the 7220 pulled up by the shop here. One of the reasons that I've got it around here, so these duals actually go in the storage shed, but we don't have air out there. And we put new tires on this tractor this spring, which means those bolts were tightened at the tire shop, probably with a much larger air impact than we have. So I hope we can get them off. The general idea though, since we're not going to have any load on this and it only has to go about, I don't know, 200 feet, is to get the bolts broken loose here and then have them tight but not super tight so that we can pull it into position and then get them taken off. I'll try to get some video when we actually do that, but basically we'll just drive the inner tire up on some blocks so that this is off the ground, and then we'll be able to hook onto the top of the wheel and lift it off of there and set it off to the side. That's mostly just so that we can get the tractor narrower to make it easier pulling up next to augers, since part of the augers that we use don't have the swing hopper. It works better to be narrow, plus if we're going to take anything to town in wagons, being narrow on the road is kind of nice as well, and less tire wear. So I'm going to see if I can get those broken loose first. We've also still got the planter monitor stuff in here from the bean planter, so I need to pull that out. Might go ahead and put the quick hitch on while I've got it sitting here, or we might do that later. We'll see. But it also could use a bath. I don't know if we'll get that far today or not. Probably we'll try to vacuum out the cab a little bit. I did buy a new toy for the farm. This little baby shop vac for cleaning cabs with. It seems like the big shop vac always gets used for dirty stuff and wet stuff, and then when you go to vacuum out a cab, it shoots dirt out the exhaust. So we're going to kind of try to use that one for only dry stuff and keep a good paper filter on it, and hopefully it'll work well and be handy for cleaning cabs, because you don't have the big 6-gallon plastic deal to trip over trying to set outside the cab on the steps or whatever. So that's where we're at. See if we can get these bolts off. This side came off okay. Required some hammering, but they did work loose. However, this side I've got 3 left that I wasn't able to turn. So obviously there's 5 in there, but those 2 are loose. So we're going to go to plan B, which is a breaker bar and about a 4-foot long pipe. Well, even with the pipe, I couldn't make those things move. I remembered I had this long 3/4 inch breaker bar that we got for taking off semi-lug nuts, but we've never had to take any off, thankfully. So I messed around with that for a little bit, didn't get anything to move. Came up with a better plan. So this one and this one were stuck. So basically I put the adjacent bolts in and then was able to get those to come loose. So essentially, instead of having a whole bunch of tension on this bolt, we tension to take a little bit of load off, and then was able to get that spun out. So the last one is right here. We're going to see if she'll come off. Easy peasy. Slightly revised plan. I think I am going to go ahead and wash this right now. There's a lot of mounting compound from when they put those tires on, and I'd kind of like to have that off of the ones going in the shed as much as possible. Plus we've got a bunch of grease on the back end from where that cheater hose for the markers on the planter leaked, and apparently we were parked underneath a rafter because we've got plenty of bird evidence on the hood. So we're going to hook up the pressure washer and give this guy a quick bath. Well, I don't know that I would call that clean exactly, but it's cleaner. So that's progress for the time being. Weird. It's like a scratch into the plastic. So I'm going to let this dry off a little bit and probably get the monitor stuff pulled out and vacuum the cab just a little bit. And then hopefully pull the duals off. Coordinates mostly good. We got the chain tensioners adjusted, but looking things over, noticed that I got a stock stomper bracket busted again. So one bolt was missing, and the second one, if you can see right in here, is cracked. So we're gonna cut these out and put in some new pieces of hardened ready rod and get that put back together. And just need to check the gearbox grease and should be good to go. I think we're set up ready to weld. So the way I'm going to do this, I've got a piece of straight steel clamped next to this piece of the bracket back here that never moved, or that was still original. And then that should give me an accurate straight to keep this parallel. And then I found a couple nuts that are the right size to get it spaced over to get the ready rod centered underneath this piece. So I'm going to tack this probably right at the front, and then get the other side tacked and make sure everything is where I want it to be, and then go back and weld in the sides and the back ends and everything afterwards. So since this is kind of thicker material, I'm going to use the stick welder. I'm going to burn some 7014 rod, and I'm going to start at 120 amps. I think, I don't know if Dad's welded anything or not. I should double check that that makes sense with 120 to 125. Maybe we'll go up. So she's stuck on there. I think since I had a little bit of a gap, I don't know how well it filled, especially on this end. So I'm going to chip off the slag and kind of see what it looks like, and probably do a little bit more work on the top side of those bolts. Alright, I think we're good enough. If you see me claiming to be a welder, just assume that I've been abducted by aliens and look for my body. We're not welding bridges today though, so I think probably it's stuck okay. The other side is a little uglier than this side. I think this is the second side probably that I welded. But at least there's no giant slag inclusions, so I think probably it'll be good enough for a 40-year-old corn head. Gonna clean up a little bit. So this goes against the bottom side of the gearbox, I believe, yes. So I need to grind these welds on the top side off flush so that this piece here will set up against everything. And so we're working, I think I have a little bit of cleanup where there's some BVs on the threads probably, but hopefully we should be going back together here very shortly. Well, in a continuation of what seems like the theme of my life lately, we found some problems we didn't know were there. So basically, this square or rectangular tube runs the full width of the head, and that's what holds all of the gearboxes and sort of like the main structure. So this goes back to the feeder house, and basically this and this are kind of important. And we've got cracks in a few places of that tube where it kind of connects to the main braces that go back towards the feeder house. So put in a call to our favorite neighborhood portable welder guy and run his list. Probably I could get it stuck back together since it's kind of structural and important, and he's pretty reasonable really cost-wise for this amount of skill that he has, and I don't. I think we're going to have him fix it how he thinks it needs to be fixed. It is going to be a couple days, so that might affect a little bit what we do when. I think that failure is not imminent at this point, so probably if we want to run some corn, we can run some and just keep an eye on it. I don't think the head is going to fall in half, but it seems like something that we probably want to get fixed. The other piece of that is that basically this needs to be on the combine for him to be able to get under here and work on it. Well, yeah, probably. Like, we do have a 3-point head mover that we could pick it up, but that would probably not be very safe. So, depending on how things go, we'll either stop running corn to work on it, or if we haven't started yet, it won't be an issue, or try to do it in the morning sometime, when we can't run beans anyway. And hopefully we can get that bulletproofed, and it'll be good for another 40 years. The sun is headed low in the sky in the west, which means another day in paradise is drawing to a close. I think we got this tractor ready to go, basically. I didn't wash windows, but it's not like that matters a whole lot. Got everything cleaned up, put some more air in the tires since we've got singles. We need a little bit more air pressure to handle the load. We're not going to have really any weight other than the tractor itself, but since we have nice new tires, we want to keep them nice and new, so we want a little more air in them. Went through and cleaned the cab out, pulled the planter stuff out, got the front end all lubricated and front tires checked and everything, checked fluids, and we got the quick hitch on, so we're ready to use it to pull wagons. I think I'm going to put stuff away, and then hopefully I can find enough ambition to come back out and maybe try to get the carb kit put in the four-wheeler so that hopefully it's serviceable when we start combining, because it would be handy to have it for running from one end of the field to the other when we're doing the corn here at the home farm, as well as running around to check stuff to see how beans are drying out and things like that as we get farther into harvest. So I'm hoping that I can get that all squared away and have that back in service here shortly, and hopefully get finished up with all the major stuff tomorrow morning, maybe. I don't know. I was hoping to get farther today than I did, but got a couple surprises, so we'll see. I did walk out and check the soybeans here in the south field earlier, and there's some that are definitely pretty dry, but there's still individual plants or spots of plants where things are quite wet, green, or definitely a lot of moisture. So remains to be seen if we're going to do corn or soybeans first, and when that might be. Was not planning on finding cracks in the frame on the corn head, so that might throw a little bit of a wrinkle in things, but I think probably as long as we keep an eye on it, we can run, if we do decide to run some corn before the welder makes it here to fix it right. So that's pretty much where we're at this point, I guess. Just keeping plugging away on the to-do list. It's about 8:30 and getting started on the night shift here. I got the carburetor off the King Quad, and now we're going to tear it all apart and clean everything up and put it back together, hopefully. The inside seems really clean, although I did knock some dirt in some different places getting it off there because the outside is not so clean. And we're dumping gas. Probably should have done that outside. But I think I'm going to kind of blow the big chunks off with the air hose and then tear into it and see what we find. I've got this handy dandy little carb kit straight from Japan, or Japan by way of China at least. So I guess it does say made in Japan though, so maybe it is actually Japanese stuff. Hard to tell. Anyway, we're going to rip this all apart and see if we can put it back together and have things still work. I guess I should have said something about the condition on this stuff. There is a little bit of shmoo in stuff. Not a ton, but a little bit. The float may have been adjusted wrong. At least, I don't know. I need to do a little research on exactly how you measure that, or see if I can find something besides the directions that I have that tells how to do that. It seemed like it maybe was set way high, or something bent over time, or something of that nature. I don't know. But I could just be totally measuring it wrong too. It's hard to tell.